It's that time of year where I tell you some creepy stories about my old neighborhood. Hey folks, this is Game Master Mike, and it's going to be time for Halloween, so might as well tell you some true stories about my old neighborhood. Well, we've moved to the country when I was 2.5 years old, which was near a state park, and there was a ton of farms filled with horse and cattle. I remember riding on one of the horses, which was kind of neat, and I loved to pet them also. And here is some scary things I want to tell you all. Now, my old house was haunted. I remember hearing tons of voices out in the hallways and in my old room. And also, my dad saw an apparition in the basement when we first moved in. And sometimes in the bathroom, we also heard a radio playing. Now, remember, my old house was built under a coal mine where I'm assuming some accidents happened and a lot of people died from those accidents, and the spirits apparently came to my house, which was built right under a coal mine. So in my home state, which is West Virginia, we get a lot of that because of coal mining. So when I was a kid, I used to explore around the things. I remember going up the cow hill, wanted to pet the cows, but they all run, and I remember there was a bull there. I'm surprised that the bull did not kill me. Remember, one of my neighbors came knocking on the door, and my sister was home telling me that I was on the cow hill chasing down the cows. And remember, my sister and my neighbor had to find me, and I was there. Remember coming home, my mom and dad came home, and I had to explain everything, and I got punished for it. My dad took away my TV because of it. So I was pissed from that. Remember how pissed off I was when I was when I was in the first grade. I remember my neighbor down the hill, which was a nutcase. I remember I was just playing and I was being nice, and he would always scream at me, "Go home!" And I was like, I wanted to play. I was not bothering anything. So, remember, he had the button for the garage door, which opens and closes. I remember touching the button on the door and playing around with it. So I ran back, and there was my neighbor down the hill, storming up the hill, and came to my mom and dad's house, knocking on the door, saying that I was playing around his property, and my dad yelled at me saying that I was not allowed to go to the school carnival. You don't know how pissed I was. I was extremely devastated. I cried. So I remember Worm Boy. He was a huge pain in the ass kid, which was an extreme troubled kid. I remember him and this other boy, the ones that I told you about. His parents divorced and his real dad buys him anything. And then this other boy, which apparently parents are also divorced, and when school's in session, he lives with his real dad, but when school's not in session, he lives with his real mom down the street. So I remember this boy had a huge fascination with earthworms. That's why he developed the nickname Worm Boy, because he loved earthworms, and he used to tease the shit out of me with earthworms. Remember playing outside in the pool, the disposable pool, and he found an earthworm and kept on teasing me. I remember telling him to stop a lot. And guess what? He didn't listen. I remember he dangled that earthworm on my neck, and I was screaming in fear while this boy was laughing at me dangling the earthworm near me. Now, my sister ran out screaming at him, telling him to stop. And when I got on the porch, I tripped and fell, and I started crying. And that's the first time my sister got into a physical fight with him. He kicked his ass, and he was running down the fucking street. Oh my god, that was the last time he hung around my property. And after that, I've not seen him because he is now afraid of my sister. I remember him at the bus stop. He took my lunch. He also teased me with an earthworm. I remember those things. I started crying because he took my lunch. I remember that time at the bus stop, my dad confronted him and he yelled at him. I thought for sure he was going to attack Worm Boy for all these teasing with me, but he didn't. So we haven't spoken to each other that year. I remember that same year the bus routes have switched and I was on the school bus much longer. Another video of that real soon. So therefore, it was pretty devastating about that. So anyway, I remember not my last apartment, but at my old house, I got robbed a few times by an intruder. It was not a break-in, but remember, the basement door had no lock, so it was an easy walk-in. But it'll give you a hint. It was my neighbor's grandson, which always comes around Easter time. Remember, he visited his family, but I had some cherished items stolen, which is going to be in the next part video. I remember going down the street, because might as well not use the bathroom, but I had to take a massive piss. I remember on knocking on this woman's door down the street, you know, with the boy that had the trampoline, you know, the same one that I've told you that hangs around with Worm Boy. I asked if I can use their bathroom, and she got extremely pissed. She called my mom, which apparently has his phone number from the friend of my sister's, and I got punished. I remember that day I had my Nintendo 64 and TV taken away, which made me extremely devastated. Well, folks, that is part 1 of my old neighborhood horror stories. Stay tuned for part 2, which is coming soon.